Good afternoon. My name is Michael Stout. I am a regional director for the Notre Dame Senior Alumni. Notre Dame Senior Alumni is comprised of alumni and friends aged 60 years and older, and we aim to help senior members of the Notre Dame community engage in programming and foster friendship, camaraderie, and service to others. So our plan today is an event that serves as a spiritual connection to Lent. How often have you heard that about our Lenten Journey? Well, I've heard the term frequently in many a homily, but when I hear the word journey, I think of travel, and that'll be our focus for today. Father Jenkins, back in the 2014 Baccalaureate Mass, said, "In literature and life, travel often changes the travelers. Travel opens up new perspectives, affords new experiences, and calls into questions certain assumptions so that it can change your life. On a trip, we begin by simply changing our geographic position, but it can end up changing your soul." Father Jenkins is telling us that there is different types of travel. And today we have a wonderful opportunity to explore how mindful or spiritual travel can enhance and transform our Lenten journey. So for this virtual journey, there can be no better guide than our guest today, Rick Steves. He's a world-renowned expert on international travel and a Notre Dame parent. For many years, he has encouraged Americans to get out of our backyards and head over to Europe. He's an author of best-selling guidebooks, stars in his own PBS show, Rick Steves Europe, has a weekly radio show, and hosts a travel party every Monday on Zoom. Well worth seeing. Hear me out. So his phenomenal website has free travel tips and a place to watch, read, and listen all things Rick Steves. His company, Rick Steves Europe, runs a small group tour program, but they've brought over 30,000 travelers per year to Europe. Finally, he's the father of ND Steves, class of '09. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Michael. Nice to be with you.
So as I'm watching your social feeds, you are a busy man, but COVID has got to be making you crazy. I mean, at this time of year, aren't you supposed to be in Europe?
It's a rough time for anybody in tourism or travel, that's for sure. My mission is to broaden people's perspective through travel. And I measure profitability not by how much money I've got at the end of the year, but by how many perspectives do I broaden. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, I've had a profitable pandemic. I've been working very hard with my radio and my TV productions and my writing and my lectures to inspire people to reach out and not be afraid of the world, but to embrace it and to celebrate it in all its diversity. Having said that, I'm hopeful that we're coming out of the pandemic, and I'll be heading off to Europe in a couple of months, and we'll hope to resurrect our tour program and get our guidebooks up to date and travel on.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, as the whole approach we're trying to do here is to meld the idea of travel and also the spiritual travel together. Right. So my question to you would be, what do you think is spiritual travel and how important is it?
You know, Michael, I've been teaching for 30 or 40 years, and I've had sort of a unintended, accidental, but logical progression in my teaching, kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of travel needs. Mm-hmm. Back in the early days in the 80s, I was talking about budget tricks, how to catch the train, how to get a good meal and get a roof over your head affordably, how not to get ripped off. That was the skills of travel. Then I realized in the 90s, we can figure that out with a guidebook or something. I want to help and inspire people to enjoy the art and the culture and the cuisine and the history. So I was sliding up and I was writing about Europe 101, history and art for the traveler. And then since about 9/11, I've realized the pinnacle of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is to travel in a way that gets you out of your comfort zone, travel in a way that exposes you to new things, and lets you fly home with the most beautiful souvenir. And that's a broader perspective, a better citizenship of this planet, a better appreciation of who we are, where we live, what we've got, and how we can make this world a better place. That's sort of the essence of what good travel is all about. And that's become a major part of my teaching. And I've written a book called Travel as a Political Act, and that's my main talk I give when I'm out and about. But I've talked for a lot of churches and Christian colleges and universities and so on. And I can swap out the word political with spiritual, travel as a spiritual act. And it's essentially the same thing. It's this mindset that we're all children of God. And when we get out and travel, we get to know the family. And that's a beautiful thing. So for me, the road can be a playground, the road can be a school, or the road can be a church. And it doesn't have to be all or anything, or all or one or the other. I think it can be everything mixed together.
Mhm.
But it saddens me when a lot of people have the opportunity to make the road a church, that it doesn't happen. When I travel, I get closer to God. I realize even when I'm far from home, even when I'm alone physically, I'm never alone. You know, if you have a strong faith, if you have Jesus as your friend, you're not alone. And you might not even know that until you put yourself far away where you are alone otherwise. And there's a joy of travel, sort of a appreciation of creation. You get inspired to embrace life and live it to the fullest. And one of my favorite recognitions when I travel is I get out and get to know the other 96% of humanity. And I realize the world is filled with joy. It's filled with love. It's filled with beautiful people. And if I stayed at home without a passport and let commercial news shape my perspective, all I'd want to do is build walls. And that's not my idea of good stewardship of the life I've been blessed with. I want to get out there and get to know the family.
That's wonderful. So you've created a hierarchy of the travelers that you've broken down into sort of 3 tiers.
Mhm.
Could you explain what that hierarchy of travelers are and how travel can draw those travelers, closer to God?
You know, that hierarchy is so important. You've got tourists, travelers, and pilgrims. Again, it's not one or the other. We all will be a little bit of it all. I mean, I'm a tourist. I want to see the slap dancing and the yodeling. But I don't just want to see tired cliches on stage.
Right.
I want to get out there and immerse myself in the cultures. I recommend people become a chameleon, a cultural chameleon when they travel, a temporary European. I don't want my favorite drink when I go to Prague or Sicily or Ireland. I want their favorite drink. I want to, when I cross the border into France, I'm just ready for an escargot. I don't crave an escargot here, but I love an escargot in France. I want to be a temporary local. That's a traveler. We're learning. We're celebrating the differences. For me, cheese was no big deal when I grew up. It's just orange in the shape of the bread. Here you go, a cheese sandwich. You go to France and you realize people are evangelical about their cheese. You know, you step into a cheese shop and it's a festival of mold. And I want to go in there and be inspired by that. Now, I don't need to go home and have a passion for spending a lot of money on stinky cheese, but I do have that as an option. And I do realize a lot of people are excited about that. And it opens me up to the fact that there's lots of right answers on this planet. That's becoming not a tourist, but a traveler. Now, take it one step further and we can be a pilgrim. And a pilgrim is how we don't just learn about other cultures, we learn more about ourselves and our relationship with God. That's just, to me, a beautiful thing. As a matter of fact, Michael, I've got a little clip. It's just 3 or 4 minutes. And it's the section of a love note to travel that I wrote during COVID when I couldn't travel. And we put it together with some archival footage. Could I roll that now? And it's just the segment about how we can be pilgrims in our travels, even if we're not on some sort of religious mission explicitly.
That's wonderful. I'd love to see it.
Okay, so I'm going to get up here, and this is just 3 or 4 minutes from a show I wrote and produced called Why We Travel. And this clip is We Travel to Be Pilgrims, and it's an option for everybody. On the road, like pilgrims, we can become seekers. Even in this age of unprecedented abundance, many of us hunger for something more, for meaning. By leaving home, we learn more about home, more about ourselves. We pause, reflect, and hope to grow. Throughout the ages, people have looked beyond the physical world to get close to God or some heavenly creator. To ask the eternal questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where will we go? It's always been a mystery. Fertility. Abundance. The cycle of life. The promise of something after we die. We sing. We perform rituals. We celebrate. We sit with someone of a different faith and accept their love.
I love you. I love him. I love everybody.
We go to war, often mixing up love and fear. Pawns of the powerful, killing, often in the name of God. We struggle to understand. We trust, or at least hope, someone up there is listening. Whether religious or not, travelers can learn from the holy books of the great monotheistic faiths, each the story of refugees and nomads, of pilgrims and travelers. In the Torah, the people of Israel wandered in the wilderness. In the Bible, Jesus' disciples left home and set out to share their good news. In the Quran, Muhammad said, "Don't tell me how educated you are, tell me how much you've traveled." These holy scriptures are the stories of travelers. Lessons from those for whom the road was church, synagogue, or mosque. People who traveled to find something bigger. Pilgrims trek today. Some to get close to God. Others to better understand themselves. My journals have helped me reflect on how being small is actually being big, how being alone is actually being connected. June 30, 1980, the Schilthorn. I hiked out, only a little afraid, past the top of a snowfield and onto the tip of a nearby peak, where I felt very close to God. Needing some alone time, I snuck out to a remote spot beyond the temple, and among broken Roman columns, just got windblown in lovely solitude, and then sat on a stone throne. A bit cold, loving the silence. I thought, nobody knows where I am.
Here's to good wine and good family.
Traveling makes us appreciate. Appreciate what we have rather than what we don't have. Savoring the luxury of a simple meal. Embracing solitude. Valuing each summit earned. Religious or not, we count our blessings. Blessings of plenty, of stability and community, of family bonds, and deep friendships. Why do I see humanity as one? Because I've traveled. Why am I curious? In spite of my privilege, why do I care? Because I've traveled. Why am I grateful? And why do I want to contribute? Because I've traveled. This is why we travel and why we keep traveling. Through traveling, we find meaning.
Oh, man. I just love those thoughts.
That's beautiful. And there were a number of sites in there from the Camino. I was lucky enough to cycle the Camino a few years back, and it brings back great memories.
I'm going to do that sooner or later, Michael. It's a great thing.
So it is, especially the people who walk it. We were cycling. We were going to be done in a little over a week and a half, but the people who are walking it, they're out there for a month and a half. So
Oh yeah, and they get to know. It's a sort of a way to commune with nature and to commune with people you wouldn't cross paths with otherwise. And it's a celebration of everything we should be celebrating as people who want to be thankful and close to God.
agreed. So Mark Nepo, I don't know if you know, he's a poet and a spiritual advisor, and he wrote something similar to what you said earlier. He wrote that to journey without being changed is to be a nomad, to change without journeying is to be a chameleon, but to journey and to be transformed is a pilgrim, which is right up your whole approach to the different types of travelers. But as you look at the different pilgrimages that are all over in Europe, the Camino, the Via Francesca.
Yep.
Is that?
I have a hard time saying it. The French way through Italy. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is your opinion of those type of pilgrimages?
Oh, it's just in our life, we need to be reminded there's more to life than increasing its speed. Everything about our mainstream commercial, Budweiser beer commercial kind of social media existence is just look good and surround yourself by successful people and be self-contained and don't need others and just be successful and pack in as much as you can. And I like when I travel, it humbles me. It wallops my ethnocentricity. It reminds me there's more to life than increasing its speed. And I think you can take a pilgrimage physically. You can do the Camino. You can start at San Jean Pied de Port and you can walk all the way to Santiago de Compostela in 40 days. But you can also take a pilgrimage in other ways. I mean, I just hiked around Mount Blanc a couple months ago. It was a pilgrimage for me. It was a week in nature. It was a week hiking all morning and then getting to the top of that pass and give us this day our daily bread. That's almost all I had because I had a little tiny bag and it's just a little ham and cheese. I swiped out a breakfast and I had my bread and it tasted like a luxurious banquet on top of the mountain. I mean, when you're on top of a mountain after hiking there, I'm a Lutheran. We don't do a lot of this business as Lutherans. We normally sit on our hands when we worship. But when I'm walking on a ridge, man, I'm walking on a ridge. On one side, I got lakes stretching all the way to Germany. On the other side, I got cut glass peaks, the most incredible alpine panorama. Ahead of me, I hear the long legato tones of an Alphorn announcing that the helicopter stocked mountain hut is open and the coffee schnapps is on. And I just feel so, people ask me, what's your favorite cathedral? I say it's walking on top of the Alps on a sunny day. I just feel so close to heaven.
No, there's something wonderful about the food that you get after doing some type of climbing or cycling or something like that.
You appreciate it, don't you, Michael? And it's a big deal is to be thankful and to appreciate. I'm traveling. I've noticed this because I generally travel alone. People think I've got like a whole big crew with me or something, but my most important travel is when I'm alone researching and taking notes. And so many times I just, like a little baby yelps for joy, I just go, life is good. You wouldn't necessarily yelp for joy saying life is good when you're in the grind here and everybody's telling you need more to be happy.
Right.
But when you travel, you realize how blessed we are and you realize how fragile this whole beautiful creation is and how it comes with a stewardship responsibility to take care of it. When you travel, you realize there's no proximity when it comes to suffering or love, or we're all children of God, that notion. If you believe in a God, well, then you just know we're all children of God. And that means we're all equally precious, regardless of our religion, the color of our skin, how educated we are, whose alliance are we on, which government are we living under. We're all equally precious. And, in my last little clip, I said, Mohammed said, don't tell me how educated you are, tell me how much you've traveled. There's an opportunity to learn. But a lot of people are afraid to travel because they might learn. And they might then question the values that they thought were the norm. That's a scary thing for people. When somebody says has a safe trip, to me, sometimes I think they're saying have a safe trip in that you don't force yourself to look at your values in the mirror, because that's kind of dangerous.
So is that why you feel that Americans should travel?
Yeah, it is. I think it's remarkable how Americans can really think that they are exceptional in God's eyes. To me, if I never had a passport, I never ventured out, and my worldview was shaped by commercial news media and fear-mongering sort of sources, I might think we are exceptional. But when you travel, you realize the only thing exceptional about us is our ability to think we might be exceptional in God's eyes. And you also realize there's very little correlation between happiness and love and joy and how your economy, I mean, how much material wealth you have.
Right.
I'm thankful to have the material wealth I've got, but I'm totally aware that, my parents taught me the work ethic. They didn't give me an option. It was the work ethic, not a work ethic, the work ethic. And then you travel and you realize, hey, your friends in Morocco and in Mexico and in Norway, they have a different work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not right or wrong, but it's just fun to celebrate that.
That's nice. But with, just a bit off topic, with COVID disrupting your business and disrupting global travel, say Gary from Dallas is heading to Rome. What advice would you have for him? At this.
Oh, I wouldn't have much advice at all when it comes to COVID. I'll tell you what I'd say on that, Michael. Right. You could assemble all the experts right now at a table, and what they know and what they say wouldn't matter because nobody knows what it's going to be like next month when you're going.
Right.
So we just have to be nimble and smart, embrace science, be good students of what are the responsibilities, not only to keep yourself healthy, but not to endanger other people. And physically, what's required to get on an airplane and be allowed in another country. I was just spent a month in Europe. Most of my staff has been in Europe. I've got a lot of my staff in Europe right now. We're going to be starting our tour program in a couple of weeks. And I'm thinking that for some people, there's too much anxiety and they shouldn't be traveling now. Other people, they're young, they're healthy, they've got immune system, they're fully vaccinated, they're curious, they want to get out there. I don't think that's reckless. I spent a month in Europe a couple of months ago, and I'm so glad I went. And it was a little nerve-wracking at first. But what I was very thankful for is the essence of Europe is still there. The little mom and pops are still in business. The ambience on the street, the passeggiata in Rome, the cafes with the rattan chairs in Paris, the people smoking their nargilés, those big hubbly bubblies in Istanbul, it's all still there.
Right.
And more people are wearing masks, and everybody needs to get their shots. But we're gonna travel on. There's no doubt about it.
That's good. That's good to hear. So to sort of swing back to the topic at hand, many of the responses spoke of getting out of your comfort zone. Right. What parts of travel moves you out of your comfort zone?
It's really important to recognize that culture shock, that's something a lot of people are afraid of. Culture shock. Mm-hmm. They work hard to avoid it. Culture shock is a constructive thing. Culture shock is the growing pains of a broadening perspective. And it's something that I revel in. Now, as a tour guide, we take 30,000 people to Europe on our tours in a normal year. We want to get people out of their comfort zone, but we need to do it in a gentle, thoughtful way so people don't just shut down, but so people are open to it and they see it's part of the joy. So you need to have the traveler's mindset. I've been thinking about it as I've been shut down for 2 years during the pandemic. A traveler's mindset. I've been employing it right here at home. I've probably got more media and more interviews and stuff like that as I've not traveled. I mean, everybody's curious about what's the travel guy doing when he can't travel. Well, I'm traveling right here in my own community. And I've sort of developed this notion of the traveler's mindset. Can I employ the traveler's mindset that makes my travels so rewarding overseas? Can I employ that right here, half an hour north of Seattle? And the answer is, yeah, I can be curious. I can have a passion for trying new things. I can better understand and appreciate the importance of community, the importance of taking care of our neighbors, the fragility of our environment. All of that is really beautiful. And I've had a pretty good pandemic, because I've had that curiosity. I've tried new things. All my adult life, I've been laser focused on travel to the neglect of other dimensions of life that have made me less well-rounded. And I thought, well, let's try something new. I can't travel right now. What if I learn to cook? What if I go back to the piano? What if I understand why people love dogs so much? This is all beautiful stuff. And it's just kind of traveling through life. So,
Have you done all those things?
What's that?
Have you done all those things? Have you picked up cooking? And
I've done all those things. I could turn my oven on, a few years ago. I had never made rice. And now I sit down with my girlfriend and we talk about the food and the spices. It's a new, I can talk about art and I can talk about history and I can talk about why Germany is united and what happened to Garibaldi in Italy. But I couldn't talk about, how mushrooms are tastier when they're in season. And now it's another dimension. So there's just that enthusiasm. And as far as comfort zones, I like to get out of my comforts. I have to remind myself to get out of my comfort zone here. And when getting back to travel, when I think about getting out of your comfort zone, I think my most rewarding travel experiences, Michael, have been when I do get out of my comfort zone. In the last few years, I've been in Cuba, I've been in Palestine, I've been in Ethiopia, I've been in Guatemala. My very favorite country is India. People they say, Rick, what's your favorite country? They think I'm going to say Ireland or Spain or France. India, why? Because India humbles me in my ethnocentrism. India teaches me I can't be so self-assured. And I just love that. It's kind of culture shock. But I didn't know people who sit on a toilet are the oddballs on this planet until I went to India. I didn't know people who use a spoon and a fork are oddballs on this planet until I went to India. And then I learned why some very sophisticated, well-off professional people eat with their fingers. Somebody explained that to me. He said, a third of the people on this planet eat with spoons and forks like you. A third of the people eat with chopsticks and a third of the people on their fingers like I do, and we're all civilized just the same. What a celebration. I'm so thankful that now when somebody eats with their fingers, I realize they've got an old spoon and fork in the drawer, but God gave them these fingers to nourish themselves. It's holistic. It's a beautiful thing. Now, I got quite comfortable doing it while I was in India because I want to be a temporary local. I want to embrace that local style. And I became quite comfortable with it. In fact, I had to be retrained when I got home, I like to joke. But it just broadens my perspective. And that wouldn't happen if I didn't make a point to get out of my comfort zone.
Amazing. Well, the founder of Notre Dame, Father Sorin, wrote a letter back to France when he was setting up the university. And what he said is that he expected the university to be a powerful force for good. Just as a side note, you set a great example, being a force for good. You're working with a number of advocacy groups. You donate to a variety of nonprofits, as well as Bread for the World. You're doing the work locally with the homeless women's shelter that you created and donated, and you're building, those centers for the community as well in your own hometown. That to me is a force for good. And
thank you.
But,
well, yeah.
Go ahead.
I would just say, if you can break free from the chains of thinking, the more material stuff you have, the happier you are.
Right.
I mean, it's not saintly, or it's not sort of like you're not really this wonderful person. You're just a more enlightened, sophisticated consumer. I mean, I know that the more I consume, Michael, there's a diminishing curve of returns. If I don't have much money, that extra $100 goes a long way. And then as I get more and more money, it goes, and pretty soon it levels out. You could even make the case that it goes down, but let's just say it just levels out the more you consume. I work very hard to produce a lot. I got way more money than what I need. It's remarkable to me how some people make me look like a pauper and they still need more, you know, but I'm just a little more thoughtful in my consumption. And I realize, okay, I'm going to keep producing and it's going to go way above my needs. What am I going to do with this extra? Now, selfishly, if I can find somebody else to consume it for me and appreciate the joy it brings them, I am vicariously consuming that, and I am wealthier than I could be if I'm just in this simplistic look at how happy I am tied to how much I consume. I can vicariously consume what I can produce and invest in other things that really are needed. Therefore, if I help house homeless mothers, if I help build a senior center, if I support Bread for the World, so they can help our government make legislation that is tuned in to the needs of hungry people, I'm enriched by that. And again, it's nothing to brag about it, other than it's just, I wish other people could consume like that. To me, it's a kind of a stewardship. It's sort of it's a Christian way to be to be wealthy and enjoy it and be proud of it and to celebrate it, because my wealth is what I produce and how that production is used in a way that is way beyond my immediate needs.
Nice. So,
and I'm just so thankful that students at Notre Dame, like my son, have been given sort of an ethic that there's more to life than increasing its speed and getting a lot of toys, you know, that we can make a difference. And it's a way to love your neighbor. And it's also a way to be a more fulfilled person individually.
So if you were to meet a Notre Dame alumni on some type of global Lenten journey, you know, and he's looking for a way to be a force for good, what would you recommend?
Travel in a way that gives you empathy for other people, to give other people a little wiggle room with their worldview. Everything has a different. Why is 9/11 such a big deal for an American? We lost 3,000 people 20 years ago, you know? Well, we have baggage, and that's something that people need to understand about America. What if that country has some baggage that's just as difficult as our 9/11? We should work to appreciate that. I think the big challenge in our country right now is fear. I think there are powerful forces that conspire to make us fearful. And when we are fearful, we can be manipulated and do things that are not true to our values, especially our values as Christians. And if we can recognize that fear is for people who don't get out very much, the flip side of fear is understanding. And we gain understanding when we travel with the mindset of a pilgrim. Wow, that makes us less fearful and less vulnerable to those kind of forces that are making this world a sad and a fraught place. I would hope that any Notre Dame grad, but anybody that wants to embrace life in an ethical way that is true to our faith, would strive to develop a mindset where you're more enthusiastic about building bridges and less enthusiastic about building walls. A lot of people want walls. Why? Because they're afraid of what's out there. Maybe they're going to get some of our stuff. I know from my travels, because I've spent a third of my adult life living out of a carrying the airplane sized suitcase overseas, hanging out with people who find different truths to be self-evident and God-given. I know that it is better to build bridges, even if all you're motivated by is your own personal safety and your family's security and your affluence. It's better to have bridges than walls. And when we get to know each other, we're going to realize that should be the driving interest. Let's build bridges. Let's connect. You know, if there's anything that's constructive that comes out of this COVID period in our lives, I think it's understanding that the existential challenges to us in the future are going to be impervious to conventional weaponry. They're going to be blind to borders and walls. And they are going to be challenges that need to be embraced not by individual nations, but by the family of nations, embracing science, having good governance, recognizing the fragility of nature, and hopefully going at it as people of faith who see that everybody on this planet, we're brothers and sisters, we're children of God. If you believe in God, whatever religion you are, whatever denomination you are, if you believe in God, then logically we are all children of God. We are all brothers and sisters. And if you travel with that in your mind, and you're traveling away with your window down and you're out there and you're not looking at cultural cliches on stage, but you're just getting your fingers dirty in the local culture, it's just toughening up that beautiful understanding. And then you go home with that most beautiful souvenir, and you've made travel a pilgrimage. You've made travel a spiritual act. You know, Michael, I've got another clip I'd love to share, which is from that same half-hour show we just saw 3 minutes of, and it's the finale of it. And when I wrote this show, this 30-minute love note to travel, I was trying to think, how does it all tie up? And it all comes together with this notion that the essence of good travel is connecting with other people. It's connecting. It's not looking at it on stage. It's being part of the party. Can I show you this little clip?
Please, I'd love to see it.
And I think we can look at it through this sort of mindset of that we can be pilgrims in our travels.
By traveling thoughtfully, we connect. Even for those of us who can only travel as a state of mind, travel can result in a deeper connection. Travel connects us face to face with reality. It's not virtual. It's not through a viewfinder. Travel is candid, honest, being in the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
In a world hungry for authenticity, we yearn for connection.
But now she's quite big. She's like you, about like that, yeah.
Travelers connect with different cultures, different people. On the road, strangers are just friends we've yet to meet. Travel frees us from routine. It creates room for serendipity.
Okay, so now I'm ready to be a shepherd.
Serendipity leads to connections. Travel forces us to bend and to flex. It makes us more tolerant and inspires us to celebrate diversity. The lessons I've gained from exploring Europe, the land of my heritage, are universal. For me, these lessons are affirmed and then stretched when traveling further afield. As a child ventures beyond his backyard, I ventured beyond Europe. Year after year, I pushed my boundaries. The world opened wide with a montage of wonders and lessons learned. Traveling beyond my comfort zone, culture shock became constructive. The growing pains of a broadening perspective, my ethnocentrism challenged. The celebration of difference and oneness at the same time. The recognition that love is love in their home just as in mine.
I think this is a beautiful, beautiful welcome here.
Through travel, we see a world filled with joy, with compassion, and with good people. We learn the more we reach out, the more we receive. We learn that we all share the same world.
Nice.
And we all share the same window of time. Travelers seek bridges rather than walls. Every wall has two sides and two narratives. For one to be truly understood, both must be heard. Traveling, we realize the challenges of our future will be blind to borders and best overcome not by conflict and walls, but by community and bridges. There's so much fear these days. The flip side of fear? It's understanding. And we gain understanding when we travel.
What is this? The celebration of Obama's...
Travel is more than a holiday. It gives us new experiences, acts as our greatest teacher, makes our lives more meaningful, and connects us with a global family. We can't all travel physically, but anyone can live with a traveler's mindset. It's a choice. Travel makes us more comfortable with the world, our hearts bigger, and our lives richer. And it makes us happier. And that is why we travel.
That is why I love my work so much, because I get to celebrate this opportunity to turn your travels into something much more than just a simple vacation.
Well, that's why I love this opportunity to sit and talk with you, Rick. It was personally a great deal of fun, and I'm hoping that the senior alumni are going to find that same enthusiasm for your philosophy and also for your getting out there and traveling.
Great. Well, I'm so thankful and happy to be part of your mission with the wonderful education you provide our young people. And a complete education is one that includes a little bit of inspiration to get out there and get to know the world.
Agreed.
All right. Thanks very much, Michael. Happy travels.
Thanks very much, Rick. Take care. Thank you for joining us with our very special guest, Rick Steves. We hope this notion of spiritual travel has enhanced your toolkit to further explore your faith during the Lenten season. Here are two books that Rick highlights during our conversation: Travel as a Political Act and For the Love of Europe. Both will give you inspiration as we all dream about traveling again. I would like to thank Rick Steves again and his son Andy, Notre Dame class of '09, for their knowledge and their time. Thanks are also due to Angeline, Heather, and Krista of the Notre Dame Alumni Association for their constant assistance. Please keep in touch with your senior alumni through future programs, and remember to look for details on Notre Dame Senior Alumni's Memorial Day program highlighting veterans. We will feature personal memories of Notre Dame alums by their classmates and families, including the remarkable story of the late Air Force Colonel Kelly Cook, a fighter pilot whose career spans World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Don't forget to stay connected with your local Notre Dame club. And until next time, God bless and go Irish.